Okay, so our next topic is another brand new device that was just announced and also got quite a bit of buzz. It is the Meta Quest 3. It's a brand new, supposedly affordable headset from Meta. It is the upgrade to the Meta Quest 2, and it's going to be a full fledged VR headset that actually this time includes color pass through for AR. And in their announcement video, they actually showed quite a few AR augmented reality uh, experiences with this device, which, if anyone remembers, in the Meta Quest 2, it did have pass through, but it was very slow and it was only in black and white. It was just designed for you to kind of map out your area, your area of where you could move around. But yeah, this version now get full mixed reality, full color pass through, and it's going to be interesting. So it comes with two controllers that are not the Oculus Touch controllers or the more pro controllers that they shipped with the Meta Quest Pro, but you can upgrade to those controllers after the fact if you really wanted to, which is interesting because when you take in a lot of the specs of this new device, it's actually better than the Meta Quest Pro in a lot of ways. So this new Meta Quest Pro is actually going to launch for $499 US, which is quite a bit of an upgrade from the original Meta Quest 2, which launched for just around $300. But that launched with like a 64 gigabyte storage option that you could upgrade to 128 when it first came out. With these new versions, what you'll get is a base level of 128 gigabytes for the $499, and then you can step up to a 512 gigabyte version. It comes with a brand new chip made by Qualcomm, the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2. This is supposed to give it much more power than the original MetaQuest 2, up to 3 times more power. Although I think with a lot of the experiences, you probably won't see that. Maybe in the future, you might see some more apps take advantage of that power. But right now, it's a lot of stuff that just existed on the MetaQuest 2, so it's going to look pretty much the same. But it does have cameras that are higher resolution than the MetaQuest Pro, and it has more RAM. So it's more powerful overall. It is more expensive, but it's definitely a much more capable device than the original MetaQuest 2 was. And in a lot of ways more capable than the MetaQuest Pro is at a cheaper cost. So it's kind of a weird price dynamic between these devices. But like I said, a lot of people have gotten their hands on them, and a lot of people have said, hey, the experience is actually really good. Unlike something like the PlayStation VR 2, this is a fully integrated headset. So yes, you can connect it to something like your PC to use for your PC's VR if you wanted to play something like Half-Life Alyx, but you can also just use the device completely untethered. And they actually made a little bit of joke at the Apple headset about how there wasn't going to be any need for tethered batteries. The battery is integrated in the headset. But another cool thing about this is that if you did want to tether a battery, it's using standard USB-C, not any kind of proprietary port like the Apple headset is using, the Vision Pro, Apple Vision Pro. Is that what it's called? Apple Vision Pro? I think so.
Yeah, Apple Vision Pro.
But you could use, even though it does have an internal battery, you could use an external battery and just connect it via USB-C to the headset. So you kind of have the best of both worlds there. It's just cool to see Meta actually get a win for once, especially after changing the Oculus branding that people were so happy with. But yeah, it seems like people are really happy about this device. They think it's really good. I am a little bit concerned about the price increase, but that's just the way things go nowadays. And it's going to be interesting to see if the Apple Vision Pro is going to do enough to convince people that it's worth 3 times the price. But yeah, have you seen much of the MetaQuest Pro? Did you see any of the announcement? Sorry, the MetaQuest 3. Did you see any of the announcement? And do you think this is Meta going in the right direction, making a more premium, better, all-integrated device? Or maybe do you think they should have cut a little bit of these features and stuck with that close to $300 price range?
I didn't see any of the actual announcement, but I have seen, reviews and people talking about it since.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely think this is them going in the right direction. With all the stuff that they've added to it, it would be nice if they stayed at the same price, but I think it's a very reasonable upgrade or a very reasonable increase in price
Hmm.
to the Meta Quest 3, especially if you compare it to something, like the Meta Quest Pro, which was absurdly overpriced. But when you look at this, it's yes, okay, that's a quote unquote pro version device. This is, I guess, your entry level device, right? This makes a lot more sense, especially considering that, as you said, it can do a lot of the things that the pro can do. And, in some ways, it can do them better than the pro can do. This is almost a no brainer. And you brought up the PlayStation, the PSVR 2, which is tethered to your PlayStation, which doesn't have, the same capabilities that this has. And that's $549,
Yeah.
right? So we can say, yeah, the Quest 3 is more expensive than the Quest 2, but it's cheaper than the PlayStation, it's cheaper than the Quest Pro, and it's cheaper than the Apple Vision Pro, right? So, and you when you look at the realm of virtual reality devices, VR devices, other than the Quest 2, this is the most affordable one that there is, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a great device, and I think they've done a lot with it. And I think hopefully this kind of, I mean, it's not like PlayStation is going to be churning out a new VR system anytime soon, right? And
Hmm.
it's not like Apple Vision Pro is going to, there's not really much that they can do with their console at this point, I'd say, because I mean, it's not even out yet. So they need to first get their first version of the device out and then work on maybe a lower cost, more affordable version of it. So I think the MetaQuest 3 is a very good device. And who knows, maybe even, 6 months from now, maybe a year from now, they come out with the MetaQuest 3 Lite. And
Yeah.
then it's, $100 cheaper. It's back in line with the MetaQuest 2. And they've toned down, okay, maybe the pass through isn't as good, maybe the displays aren't as good, but you still have snappy performance, you still have a very limited pass through, and you still have access to all the games and all the features that they have. So I think it's a very good device. And if I had to choose a VR device right now, I'd definitely choose this one. PlayStation VR 2, it was okay, they have cool games for it, but really there's only what, like 4 or 5 games at launch,
Hmm.
and then nothing else really since then. And the fact that that has to be tethered to a PlayStation, and you can't play even PSVR 1 games, and you can't tether it to a PC to play PC games, it's like this is a much more or not much more. It's what, $50 more expensive device that you can do less with,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, I think the MetaQuest 3 is in a very good spot, despite being more expensive than the 2. But who knows? I'm sure they could even continue to sell the 2, right? At the same price, or maybe even they drop the price down a little bit. And so it's, if you really want the entry level into VR, get the MetaQuest 2. If you want and that's funny thing, if you want like the cutting edge of what MetaQuest is doing, get the Quest 3, not the Quest Pro, right? So, yeah, I think it's in a very good spot. I think it's a good device from what I've seen. And hopefully, hopefully they get some sort of competition, because to be honest, I don't think Apple's Vision Pro is tapping into the same market that the Quest 3 is. And I think just from, the amount of features that you have with the Quest 3 and the fact that it is less expensive, you don't have to tether it and you can connect it to a PC. I think that kind of separates it from the PSVR 2 also. So, yeah, they're kind of, I feel like Meta's in a league of their own right now when it comes to the VR headsets. But what are your thoughts on the device and all the features that it has?
Yeah, I think you brought up some fantastic points there. And yes, I do want to reiterate, they are still going to sell the MetaQuest 2 and back at its original launch price of $299. So there is going to be that lower priced version. And this is going to be for the 128 gigabyte version. So you're getting
Back
the
to 199.
299.
Oh,
So you're getting the 128 gigabyte version for what the 64 gigabyte version used to cost. Which is kind of cool. So you do have a $299 version of the headset that's much more pared back, and then you also get the Meta Quest 3 at $499, $500 for a lot of the more flagship features. And I think what you mentioned there is really important because you're comparing it to things like the PlayStation VR 2, which when you were looking at the PlayStation VR 2 versus the MetaQuest 2, there was a huge gap there in terms of the hardware that you were getting that made the PlayStation VR 2 worth the price that you were paying for the experience that you were getting. You had certain features like IPD, the interpupillary distance, kind of changing so you didn't have to wear your glasses with it if your prescription fell into that line. But that's now something that also exists in the MetaQuest 3. You had these high resolution, high refresh rate screens in the PlayStation VR 2. That's something that now exists in the MetaQuest 3. So you also have the pancake lenses that were in the to make the image a little bit closer, a little bit clearer, minimize screen door effect. That's now also in the MetaQuest 3 as well. So you're using really, really great technology as well as, at least from what we're seeing from the reviews, pretty good pass through. So yeah, I'm with you. I do think that this was a smart move on their part. They stuck under the $500 price point by 1 cent, which I think is good for like the mental aspect of it not seeming too expensive. And I do think, and I'm kind of curious to get your impression on this, I kind of think they stole a bit of Apple's thunder. I think after the Vision Pro kind of announcement video, at least for me, I think we were both really kind of positive on it of like, oh, you know what? They might have done it. They might have convinced someone like me who has no interest in VR at all into thinking that they could make the future of what VR and augmented reality is going to be like, this very sleek kind of headset that had like the eye pass through that I think a lot of people are making fun of, but I still think is kind of cool in a lot of ways, with the screens on the front. But seeing this device and seeing a little bit of the reveal of this device, I think a lot of what Apple was talking about for the price that they're charging for the Vision Pro, I think the MetaQuest 3 kind of makes them look a little bit bad in a lot of ways. They're talking about this really good pass through that, yes, isn't on the level of the Vision Pro, but it's a fraction of the cost and it can still do those things that the Vision Pro was talking about. And one of the coolest things that I saw in their press conference is they talked about how you can actually put things in your environment. So let's say you wanted a piece of art on the wall or a TV on a particular wall or something like that, and it will stay there. So, you're done with your session and stuff like that. Um, you put your MetaQuest 3 down, you don't need it anymore. But then you pick it up and you put it back on, and everything that you placed in your room or in your house or in the environment that you're in is still there, which is kind of cool. I think that's something that Apple talked about a little bit with their Vision Pro. But then also you get the added thing of, hey, it comes with controllers, so you don't need to pinch and use your fingers the way the Vision Pro was talking about. You can actually use regular controllers to do things like play video games, which they did show a little bit of in the Vision Pro kind of um, conference, I guess, when they were unveiling it. But you had to use someone else's controller to do that with. This comes with it in the box. So yeah, it's just a lot of things that they did here really impressed me, which I was kind of surprised about because I didn't think I would be impressed by a VR headset, let alone a VR headset from Meta. But yeah, I think they did a great job. How do you think they compare to what the Vision Pro is promising? Do you think that they've gotten most of the way there, or do you think Apple still has a pretty big leg up in terms of the fact that they're doing things a little bit better and they have a nicer design and they also have the Apple magic associated with their products that maybe, when the Vision Pro comes out, people just forget that the MetaQuest 3 exists?
I don't know. I still think they're way overperforming
Mm,
when it comes to comparing the MetaQuest 3 to the Vision Pro. As you mentioned, like all the pass through stuff that you can do on the MetaQuest 3, it's kind of like, why are we paying or why are we getting ready to pay what, $3,000 for this
yeah.
Vision Pro device where we can do all of this or most of this on the Quest 3? Yeah, there are some cool things that Apple has. And that's the thing too, is like they're targeting a different audience almost, right? Like their whole thing is spatial computing,
Yeah.
right? So the fact that you can connect it to a MacBook or a Mac desktop or a Mac device and project your screens just into just to augment your reality. You can watch movies on it, and you can have experiences that you either like dial in or dial out in terms of how much of your space they take up. So yeah, there are some cool, clever things that Apple's doing, but I mean, there's nothing groundbreaking that can't be emulated by somebody else,
Hmm.
right? So is all of the spatial computing and the watching movies on a lake, is all of that worth like what, 5 6 times the price? Probably not.
Yeah.
And I think by the time the Vision Pro comes out, yeah, there's going to be people that buy it just to be like, I have Apple's newest and best thing. But is that a large enough number? Like, it's not going to be a large enough number for it to be widely adopted and for it to be successful.
Hmm.
Because, okay, maybe let's say they cost the same thing to make, which they don't. But let's say they cost the same thing to make. And for every one Apple Vision Pro that gets sold, Meta has to sell 6 devices to make up the same amount of profit, right? I don't think that you would sell enough Apple Vision Pros to support the ecosystem that you're going to try and build, because there are more. The Meta Quest 3 is a more compelling device.
Hmm.
So I think just in terms of, okay, if you're looking at developers building apps and building experiences, if you're a developer and you can create something for, let's say, 100,000 Apple Vision Pros. It's definitely not going to be 100,000 Apple Vision Pros. Let's say, okay, 10,000 Apple Vision Pros, or you can create an experience for 100,000 MetaQuest 3s.
Yeah.
You're going to pick the MetaQuest 3 to develop things for, because more people are actually going to experience your whatever you're building. There's going to be more customers for you, right? So yeah, Apple will probably sell. They'll probably sell their devices, but I don't think it's going to be large enough for them to even support VR or AR. I'm sure they'll do maybe 2 or 3 versions, but unless they severely drop the price and they add a lot more features and maybe they have their own controller that they come out with, I don't think you're going to have wide adoption of the Vision Pro like you do for the Quest 3.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you with a lot there, and I think this might be a situation where if Apple really wants to make this a thing, they might need to poach a little bit of expertise from Meta and from the Oculus team, because I don't know if you saw, but there was a report earlier in the summer that Apple's internal testing kind of brought to the forefront that the Vision Pro might be too heavy for people to use comfortably. And a lot of what makes the design so cool on the Vision Pro is the fact that it's aluminum and glass.
Mhm.
And that's a lot more heavy than plastic, which the Meta Quest 3 is. And if they did kind of change those materials to maybe cheaper, lighter materials, it might not feel as premium and as cool as what they originally shown. And who knows, we might even see the device that's supposed to come out next year get delayed. Who knows, we might even see an update of it on this new event that we're having in just about a week. But yeah, do you think there's any chance that the Vision Pro ends up getting scrapped? Do you think that Apple is fully in on AR and VR as Meta is? And do you think either of those companies are doing the right thing here? Because as cool as the Meta Quest 3 is, and I'm sure it's going to be much more successful than even the PlayStation VR 2 is, are we still not at the point where VR and AR is all that interesting to most people? Because these are more expensive devices than the Meta Quest 2. The Apple Vision Pro is way more expensive. I'm just kind of struggling to find, and I felt the same way about the PlayStation VR 2, where these audiences are coming from that are going to want to pick up these things. Now, I'm saying that I have mentioned on the podcast in the past, I do have a little cousin who is so obsessed with VR that he wants every MetaQuest headset that comes out, and he's like, can't wait to get his hands on them. But I don't know. That's just not a sentiment I'm seeing a lot of out in the wild.
I don't think Apple scraps theirs simply because they've announced it. So it for sure will come to market at some point. But yeah, who knows? Maybe it does get delayed and they end up reworking it. And then instead of coming out next year, it comes out in 2 years and it is a lighter device, more comfortable to wear, maybe no more external battery pack.
Hmm.
That is always a possibility. So I would say that would be most likely to happen. I think Meta's doing the right thing in that they're building both games and experiences for the device, and and they're still keeping an entry level device, an entry level option.
Yeah.
And I think that says a lot, right? They could have scrapped the MetaQuest 2 and said, nope, this is your only option. This is the entry level. But they understand that, yeah, part of what made their past devices so successful is that they were affordable. And yes, they didn't have the best pass through, the fastest processor on them, but it got people interested in VR and it got people into VR. So I think they are doing the right thing in terms of like building out the VR landscape, and I think they will continue to be successful. And that's the thing too, is like they have, well, I mean, this is their third, fourth device, but how long has Oculus been around developing
Yeah.
things, right?
Exactly.
So they know, they have a lot of data in terms of what type of device people like, in terms of like how does it feel, how does it fit, how heavy is it. They have a lot of data on that, and they have a lot of data in terms of what do people like to do on their devices. Do they
Hmm.
like to play video games? Do they like to go in a Horizon world? Do they like to, I don't know, draw or hang up art in their house? So I think the fact that, just like how Oppo has years of experience that they can then give to OnePlus, and it's like, oh, this is amazing for a first device. Meta slash Oculus has years of experience developing VR headsets. So they know there's a lot of things, as you mentioned, like the aluminum, like the glass on Apple's headset, where they design it. It's like, oh wow, this looks so cool. But when we give it to people to use for any period of time, it's like, it doesn't matter how cool it looks. If it hurts their neck when they're wearing it or playing games, they're just not gonna do it,
Yeah.
right? So I think Meta is definitely moving in the right direction, or continuing to move in the right direction. I think that they will continue to be successful, and I really don't see anyone coming in and upending them anytime soon.
Yeah. I kind of completely agree. I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg hopes this pays off for them, considering he went so hard into the meta kind of aspect of the company. But yeah, once again, gotta give a shout out to the Oculus team for making great hardware, because at least from what we're seeing from the reviews, people love this.
Yeah. Just take it easy, everyone in podcast land.
Catch you in the next episode.